Hello and welcome to the live stream for the Australian Gymnastics Championships 2026, where our athletes are vying for the title of National Champion. We certainly have an action-packed evening ahead with our trampoline gymnastics. You'll be seeing qualification for male and female trampoline seniors, along with the double mini trampoline youth under 15 male and female qualifying, plus the tumbling junior under 17 male and female qualifying. Exciting stuff happening here at the Key Centre, Sydney. And of course, we are so lucky to have our expert commentator talking us through it all, a highly accomplished former international competitive trampoline gymnast who built a legendary 25-year legacy in the sport, 4-time national champion, 2-time world championship finalist, 3-time Olympic reserve. He knows all about world-class execution and aerial precision, being the most capped gymnast across all gym sports. Wow, a big hello and welcome to Sean Swartling. What a CV you have.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very excited to be here, and this very much was, my launch pad into the sport was the Australian National Championships. So a bit different this year for myself, being on the other side of the fence now as a retired commentator, I guess, for tonight. So I'm very excited to see what happens on the trampoline, doubling and tumbling today.
But you've also done so much, because were you on a cruise ship as well, an Ironman, dad, like so much going on outside of this, but I don't know how you do it all.
I said yes to a lot of things and then worked it out as we went along, but trampolining provided me with that ability to work through some hard things and a unique skill set. So at a down period in my career, the opportunity came to jump into the performance world and had a little stint on a cruise ship, aka I call it my circus pirate career, sailing around the East China Sea, and then COVID ended that and I found my way back onto the Australian trampolining team once the performance kind of went away with COVID, and ended up having another 4-year stint in the sport as one of the top athletes here in Australia, and ended up coming away with another Olympic reserve for the Paris Games after my little stint in the circus. So it's been fun, and had my first child during the Paris Olympic cycle, and my first daughter Andy was born, and 2 weeks later, much to my wife's disapproval, I was competing in a World Cup qualifying event in Bulgaria, but I think she's very happy now that I've hung up the leotard.
That's so action-packed. I don't know how you do it all. So you went to Bulgaria. Yep. And what about your partner? Did she stay at home?
Yes, luckily we had a very uncomplicated birth, and I was able to get on the plane, and the Australian national team was very supportive of me. They kind of knew it was a bit touch and go during the Paris Olympic cycle. I was one of the elder athletes, already in my 30s, and the average age for most athletes is around that sort of 20 to 22-year-old age bracket. So they were wonderful in managing my needs and helping me to balance the complex life of a full-time school teacher, full-time trampoline athlete, trying to still hold on to the straps of the younger boys. But it was an awesome experience, and I think I got to experience sort of like the twilight of my career in a really happy and healthy space, and I got to go out of the sport and retire on my own terms, and very happy with the career that I've had, and now I get to do all the cool stuff on the other side of the fence, which is exciting.
Really cool. How old are your little ones now?
My eldest is about to turn 3, and then my youngest is 1.5. So
do you see them on the couch jumping up and down and you're like, oh, it's in the genes?
Yeah, look, there's a little bit of me that spots it, and I was like, oh, maybe diving or maybe artistic gymnastics, or I don't know what, but I just want them to be happy, and I'll support whatever they do. But yeah, this is my passion, this is my love, this is something I've been involved with since I was 8 years old, and we have such a unique and exciting community in trampoline sports. So hopefully the boys and girls on Tramp tonight put on an awesome display and we get to see some world-class performances.
What are you predicting we'll see tonight?
This is always a unique event, Australian Nationals. We are world-class in trampolining. We have a long heritage of really phenomenal results across all the disciplines in trampoline, double mini and tumbling. But one thing we haven't always had is a lot of depth. So you can see some of the athletes tonight will be ranked up in the top 20 in the world, and then we've got others who are maybe training 2 or 3 times a week but still get to be on the competition floor with these guys that are taking it as a full-time profession essentially. So you'll get to see a little bit of a mixed bag tonight of all levels of our sport, but there's a few men and women in the field tonight that are definitely ones to watch in the upcoming Olympic cycle, and ones that will go on and have already had outstanding results on the international circuit, and hopefully they put up the goods tonight as well.
So we're currently watching warm-up. I cannot believe the height they are getting. Roughly how many meters would you say it is? Because all we've got to compare it to is the roof, but with the camera angle you can't actually see. Oh, there we go. That's that's the height we're looking at.
It is a unique one, and the camera never really does it justice. The top men are jumping 8 to 10 meters into the air. So one of the scores that we get judged on that goes towards your total score is your time of flight. So you do get points for essentially how high you jump. So you want to see these athletes to not only start high, but to finish their routines high as well. So yeah, they're 8 to 10 meters from the bed, and then the trampoline sits roughly about 2 meters off the ground as well. So they're getting up to some pretty extreme heights. Obviously some safety precautions. You can see the blue mats on the end. You want to stay off them, but they are there in case an athlete does come off. And then when the competition starts, you'll see there's a coach there on the side of the trampoline holding a spotter mat. So if the coach chucks that in, it does terminate the routine, but the coach needs to make that choice of the safety and longevity of an athlete versus a one-off routine. But they do have that added safety, and then you'll see later on some spotters in their bright orange t-shirts that come on who are specially trained to, in worst case scenario, catch a gymnast if they are coming off the trampoline.
Good to hear there are so many safety precautions. I guess that would require a lot of trust with your coach.
Yeah, a lot of the coaches will be with their athletes that they coach full time, but they are, trained and experts in the sport, and a lot of the times the coaches can sometimes tell when an athlete's in a little bit of trouble more than sometimes the athletes can. You can hear the different sound of the springs. You can hear maybe the sort of vocals of the gymnast while they're jumping. You can see their shoulders or their hips move in a certain way that might be a little bit different. But it is quite a unique relationship, and a lot of these athletes and coaches will spend the 10,000 hours or 10,000 repetitions watching each other day in, day out in their gyms in their respective states and territories. So I think there is that inbuilt trust, but there's also that extra layer of it is competition. You do want to see you're the best, but you do sometimes see a coach get it wrong. I've had it happen for myself, my coach, over 26 years, and you just kind of shake it off and you go, you know what, it's normally me making the mistakes. So it is few and far in between, but it does happen that the coach will make a call, and I always had the philosophy of, I'd rather walk away and live to fight another day than to have it all go away, which unfortunately sometimes happens with any sport. You're going to get injuries, so safety first.
Wow, so you could be in the air, you get a glimpse down, you see your coach gripping the mat, about to put it in your hand. Can you yell out, no? How does that work?
You can communicate. There's no deductions for that from the athlete to the coach. It doesn't happen very often. The routines are dialed. The athletes will know what 10 skills they're going to compete, and the coach as well will know the order of events, like the order of skills that is going to come. You don't see too much deviation from that. There are some talented athletes that have the aerial awareness to make substitutions or changes to their routines. But usually if you're substituting a routine, it's probably not the routine. The routine's not going to plan. So, it is like a bit symbiotic and a bit of, just that trust. my coach had a bad habit of dropping the mat at about skill 7 when he knew the routine was going well, which was
Oh, no.
which was its own little distraction in its way. But it was always him, proud of what we're doing on the trampoline and showing his support for it. But yeah, we had a chat one time being like, "Come on, coach, 10 skills, hold it to the end."
So 3 skills worth. How long would that take? How many seconds?
About 6 seconds of a routine.
Just
Yeah.
leave it another 6
Yeah.
seconds, please.
But I was lucky to have the one coach for my entire career, so he was like a father to me, and he knew me better than I did sometimes. So he kind of knew when a routine was on, and sometimes it wouldn't be until I would go back and watch a video back on watch the routine on video afterwards that I actually realised he dropped the mat, which meant you were in the zone and it was probably a good routine anyway, so you didn't want that mat coming in anyway. But you can see now the mat coming on during warm-up.
Yeah.
It just dampens the trampoline, and it's not going to stop an athlete from coming off, but it can be the difference between a rolled ankle or something worse. So
Yeah, of course.
it just takes the edge off. But we've got our first athlete up now on trampoline.
Exciting times. Here we go. Things are kicking off.
And we're going to start off with one of our top athletes at the moment. So this is Luke McLeod out of Tasmania. He's just come off a World Cup tour where the Australian team just recently last weekend were competing in Portugal. And the weekend before that in Switzerland. So a lot of travel for a few of these athletes. So a bit of fatigue coming into this competition, but something that they've definitely managed and are able to sort of balance in their preparation. But Luca is probably one of our top gymnasts at the moment. Hasn't had the competition year that he probably would have been hoping for. So he's under a bit of pressure here to put up some performances, but you're going to see him start off here. He's known for his skills. He's got a big Rudy out drift pike there, half in, half out drift pike, half in, half out pike, and just clip that blue end there. So you saw the mat come in there. So not the performance Luca was hoping for there. So unfortunately for him, for trampolining we get scored out of 10 because he touched the blue mat on the way down there on skill 4. It means that skill's discontinued, so then his routine will be marked out of 3. So you're not going to see a big score here for Luca, but the day's not over. So these men and women are going to get to do 2 routines, and it's your best score counts. So just because he's got not a great score, 19.4 there, Luca's really aiming to be up around the 58, 59 there, but he does have another routine, does have another opportunity. All the marbles are still on the board. So, and that's the mental battle now with these new change of rules. You've got to be able to stay composed and let a mistake like Luca just happen there slide and get back onto some quality trampolining.
And they'll only use the highest score. It's not an average of the 2 scores.
Correct. Just one score, your highest score counts. Some athletes will, if they hit a really, really good score, might not opt to even do a second routine. But most of these men and women are vying for selection into World Championships, and they can hit that off either score. So you're not probably going to see too many athletes leave a routine on the board. This is one of our other bright stars on the trampoline at the moment from New South Wales, Nicholas. Just also come off the World Cup tours. He started his routine here with 4 triple somersaults, 1.5 in, half out pike, pike double back, full in, half out pike, and then a full in double out, which is not going to count there as his 10th skill. But that last one where he lost his balance there and touched the end was a triple twisting double back, one of the biggest skills we're going to see at skill 10, which is going to affect his score there, but that routine alone is probably going to be enough to put Nicholas into the final, which is kind of the second objective of this prelims, is to qualify yourself through to the final, which is the top 8 men tomorrow. But as I mentioned, these athletes are also competing for World Championship slots, so there's more on the line than just a final.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah,
they're handling it.
Yeah, you're always going to see a few misses, but it's whoever can take the miss and sort of regroup and get themselves back on track.
And we'll pick your brain for scoring. So there's difficulty, execution, time of flight, horizontal displacement. Is that correct?
Yes, so your difficulty is how many essentially flips and twists you do across the 10 skills. Each skill has its set numerical value and you add up your 10 skills to get your routine total value. And then your execution is essentially how nice you do it. You can see the judging will be up there, and it's done on individual skills. So they don't judge the routine as a whole, you judge each individual skill. Then time of flight is how high the athlete will bounce. So you can see here Ryan Hatfield, he's one of the older athletes in this field. He's got a couple of singles there, and that would be, Ryan is very, very intelligent man. He's actually a sports scientist, and he would be one of the very few athletes that calculated the time of flight. He actually built his own time of flight machine out of a garage door sensor many years ago. Yeah, very, very unique young gentleman, Ryan Hatfield, just there.
Because there are electronic devices on the tramps measuring.
Yes, so there's force plates that sit under the 4 legs of the 4 feet of the trampoline, and they measure the time that the athlete is in the air. As you can see the gymnast here doing quite well at maintaining her height. It's not just about how high you jump, it's about maintaining it across all 10 skills as well. And the force plates will measure just the time in the air. So obviously a gymnast that weighs 80 kilos is going to compress the trampoline further than a gymnast that weighs 70 kilos. So that doesn't necessarily mean the heavier gymnast is going to jump higher. So they take the time in the bed out of the equation, and it's just the time of flight, the time off the apparatus.
This is so complex. There is so much maths and science.
It is, but there's so much more to jumping higher than just being heavy. Like, you need to be able to use your levers appropriately, your technique for your takeoffs. Most athletes around the world will jump higher on a backwards skill. Just the way the mechanics work and the technique works.
Because you're leaning further back with your chest, or?
It can be a little bit of the way you can harness the trampoline. So got 2 Queensland athletes up at the moment. The female on the far side is Karina Haggerty. So that's one of our top female gymnasts in the country at the moment. She's just come off the World Cup tour as well, and probably one of the arguable top favourites for this event. And if you've just seen in the back corner there, she's actually stopped. So that's very much within the rules. So the head judge would say when you're ready, and you've got 60 seconds to start your routine. In that time, you can have a cup of tea, pack lunch, preferably 6 bounces, and we'd be ready to go. So Karina's just taken a moment there to stop. She stood on the end, which is perfectly okay, and she's resettled herself. So this is a veteran move. She's one of the older gymnasts competing in the women's side. And the theory is, you want to go within about 5 or 6 bounces. If it doesn't happen, you don't want to over bounce, because then you just have unnecessary energy expenditure. And she's just started with a triff pike there, half in, half out pike, triff tuck, 2 triples for the women. For the world standard is pretty common. We haven't had too many Australians hit it, and she's obviously just stopped her routine there, which shows she probably was closer to the blue pads than the camera just showed. But that ability to stop and settle your mental game, control your heart rate, is a really key sign of a very experienced gymnast, and one who knows herself and her ability to preferably hit the 10 skill routine, which she didn't just then, but she put herself in a position to be ready to go.
At what stage in your career would you start confidently resetting and stopping?
It depends on what you train in your gym. I was always one to kind of just I would much prefer just to get a routine going. So the gymnast up on the trampoline now, Matthew French from Tasmania. Tasmania has recently just popped up in the last few years as an absolute stronghold, particularly in the men's trampoline. And they all are strangely over 6 foot tall and all jump with a very similar technique. And Matthew, that is a really strong routine for him. He's probably one of the athletes that's kind of on the edge of selection for World Championships. He's very capable, very good gymnast in his own right. He's made World Championship finals on double mini. He's trying to crack into the trampoline team now. And in the men's division, the 3rd and 4th spot on the team could be anybody's at the moment. It's all going to come down to this and another competition later on in the year. and it's just whoever can put up the biggest score is who they usually take. The top 2 to 3 athletes have already got some really strong and probably untouchable scores on the board, from guys like Luca, Nick and Brock, who are going to be up later on. But that 3rd and 4th spot is potentially up for grabs, and there's about 6 boys in this field tonight that on their day could make that transition from a good national athlete to I'm an international representative on the Australian team now.
So a lot on the line this evening.
Yeah, and it's going to be close, which it hasn't always been for the last few years. There's usually a clear-cut top 4, which it makes up a national team. But this year, it really is those last 3 to 2 spots really could go in any direction. And it depends on what happens tonight.
So watch this space, and we certainly will be keeping an eye on the scores.
So we just saw the mat come in there for Andy. Obviously not the performance he was hoping for. But our next male athlete up here is Sam Durkin. He's one of those athletes I was just talking about, where if he puts it all together, he's going to be up in contention for selection onto the national team. And odd fact, he was actually drafted by the Cowboys to play NRL and chose trampolining over. So he's a very talented athlete, very, very strong. He's quite tall and powerful athlete, and it really shows when he jumps. And he's just started in the last year or two to really put together the technique with his sort of gifted athleticism. And he's got every trick in the book. He's got all the skills. He just kind of needs to put it all together for 10 in a row.
I cannot imagine seeing him on the NRL field, because this is him in his element.
So you can already see he's quite higher than the other athletes. That's his 2nd triple somersault. There's his 3rd. Half in Rudy out pike, so a double twisting double somersault. Rudy out pike, 1.5 twisting double somersault. Full in half out pike there. Half in half out pike. And we're going to see Miller here. So there's that triple twisting double back. So that's kind of like the world standard routine would be 3 triple start for the men with the Miller finish. And that was a pretty solid routine for Sam.
So glad trampolining and gymnastics got him and not NRL.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that.
He's definitely got a future in the sport, and the progress he's made over the last sort of 12, 24 months has just been outstanding. I was lucky to share the floor with him at my last national championships in 2024, and he was just coming on then, and I remember having a chat with him in warm-up and just saying, like, keep going, mate. Like, you're nearly there, and it's really coming through. He's going to be one to watch in the next few years.
So potentially you're the one that kept him in this sport.
Oh,
I can credit you.
Very small part in it. He's got a great team up in Queensland surrounding him. Yeah, I gave him a pat on the back. Another one of our Tassie boys up here now. They just keep producing these tall boys out of Tasmania. Their coach holding the mat there for him, Ben Kelly, coaches out of Kingbridge Gymnastics Centre down there in Tassie. And they've just perennially had, for the last 20 years, athletes on the national team across multiple disciplines. So you can see a little bit lower difficulty here. Still got his double twisting. Oh, he's had to sub in a single somersault there. Back on track with the half in, half out pike. And then that Miller. Oh, he lost control there. So he's still going to get credited for the 10 skills as he landed 10 on 2 feet. But with the out of control outbounce there, he's going to lose a significant deduction as part of his execution score, which is probably going to put him towards the bottom of our final contention there. But another routine potentially up soon for Billy. Sam is currently leading with a 56.68. Oh, sorry, Matthew's 56.8 as well. So a few boys sitting around that 56 mark. Really, we want to see them up around 57, 58. And Luca now, with his miss on his first routine, he's put himself in a bit of a tricky situation where he's got a do or die routine right now. And then we've got Evie up for the women's trampoline. So there's a little bit of a technical difficulty which happens sometimes with our technology in the sport. It's not always flawless. So Evie's found herself in a little tricky situation there where she's had to pop off the trampoline. We used to practice this. Our coach used to delay us and distract us with different things. So hopefully she can hold her composure ready for her second routine. But here's a big one ready for Luca to make sure he's in this final tomorrow. Luca does, as you can see, jump quite high. He's got one of the bigger difficulties in this field. Rudy out drift pike, half in, half out drift tuck, drift pike, half in, half out pike, drift tuck, 1.5 in, half out pike, full in, half out pike, half in, Rudy out tuck, half out pike, full in, double out straight. Not the best execution there for Luca. I think he got stuck on the side of the trampoline just there a little bit. But big routine for Luca. That was a do or die moment. He didn't have a score on the board from that first routine. Here's Evie. She's up and underway now with the judging panel sorting out whatever technical difficulties they had. Not sure this is the routine that Evie would normally put up. Whoa, she's landed skill 10 there a little bit short. So because her knees touch the bed there, and that'll be out of 9, so that's going to pretty heavily affect her score there. But it's one of the tricky things in our sport when the technology doesn't work. It can sometimes throw off an athlete's mental game. Hopefully Evie's okay there.
And so hard when you don't know if you're going to be waiting 5 seconds or 5 minutes.
Usually the competition flows pretty quick. You normally got about 8 minutes between your turn when there's 8 to 10 athletes. But those little bit of distractions can really rattle some athletes. Like I was saying, we used to practice it. Mock comps in our training gym. Our coach used to throw in random crowd noise on the speaker or just start screaming or yelling at us or delaying us for no apparent reason to kind of play with you, and it made us mentally stronger and be able to deal with those adversities.
The focus required is so intense, right?
Because you do have that routine that gets you into the zone and puts you into the spot, and when things mess it up and that aren't in your control, like a computer not working, it can be frustrating.
Things outside of your control, yeah.
Layla just put up a pretty solid routine there. Our women's field at the moment, we're back over to Nick, sorry. He didn't put up the best routine for our first round. I think he would want some redemption here to put himself into a good position for this final. He just had some pretty decent results in Portugal and Switzerland. Made his first semi-final on the international stage. Unique skill there for the men. Triple back tuck at skill 4. Drift tuck at skill 5, 1.5 in, half out pike, pike double back, full in, half out pike, and then that triple twisting double back, the miller to finish, and that's the routine he was looking for. So that was our second 4 triple routine there. So after the Paris Olympic Games, there was a review of the rules, as there always is, and we had some pretty big change coming into this cycle. And there's a big incentive now in the scores for doing triple somersaults. They've been incentivized and upped the difficulty a little bit. So you're going to see more men, particularly in the international scene, competing multiple triple somersaults. We've already seen 8 and 9 triple routine by a few of the top athletes around the world. And we just saw one of the New Zealand athletes a week ago in Switzerland do the first ever 5 triple routine in the female division, which was very cool to see the sport progressing. And I'm very happy now that my feet are on the ground. So some of the skills coming out now is things that athletes from my generation used to just dream of, and now it's happening on the competition floor, and the ante's been upped with the difficulty. So it's been impressive to see.
How do you work your way up to a triple?
It's just progressive, like any other sport. You don't just come in and all of a sudden be able to do.
Don't just chuck it.
Yeah,
it's not something anyone can do.
We're pretty lucky with a lot of technology development with harnesses and foam pits now. A lot of the skill progressions are a lot safer. Not to sound too ancient, but back in my day, we used to put a wetsuit on and go to the 3-meter platforms, 3-meter springboards at the local diving pool. And that was where we learnt our skills, because we didn't have access to some of the facilities that are around now.
Getting used to the motion and feeling it out.
So we've got 2 athletes up now, but we've got a big routine on the far side for Karina. She didn't quite put on the performance she would have liked to in her first routine. And this is arguably our top female at the moment. Just had some pretty strong performances over in Portugal and Switzerland. Got a better start. Oh, so that was meant to be a triple somersault, and she's made the choice to sub through. And I'm betting that is to make sure that she lives to fight another day tomorrow in the final. She's recovered well. She's back on track. Pretty decent height maintenance. And she's probably going to be out of 10 out of 9 skills there, with that 10th skill just grazing the pad. Our women's side of the field at the moment is going through a little bit of a development phase. We've had a few of our older athletes who have been well established on the women's side have various reasons for not being here. One of our top women during our last cycle, Abby Watts, just recently had her first baby.
Oh, congrats.
And she's an absolute warrior, and I would have no doubts about her returning postpartum. She's been on many teams and just narrowly missed Olympic qualifications for our women for the Paris Olympic Games. There's top 16 that go, and she was in 17th spot.
Oh.
So we just by the skin of her teeth missed out on that selection. And then our 2020 Olympian Jess Pickering has just been dealing with some ongoing knee issues and has just recently had knee surgery and is on her way back as well. So there's a little bit of like a dip in the women's at the moment, but it's opened up the door to some of our younger athletes to try and crack onto a team and to really stamp on their positions and make some of the older athletes earn it when they do come back. So this is a big night for our young women to see, one, are they capable of hitting scores that are going to put them onto a national team? Just because you place fourth in the top 4 does not guarantee you a spot to World Championships. There are minimum selection scores that you need to prove to show that you are eligible to compete on the world stage. And so far, Karina, who was up earlier representing Queensland, has been the only female who's kind of hitting those marks that the coaches need to see to make that selection onto the national team. So there's 3 spots essentially open. The girls just need to put themselves on that team by hitting a score over this weekend and the next one later on in September.
And are they all solely focused on the World Championships at the moment, or do you think they're looking further into the future, 28, Los Angeles Olympics?
I would hope we're looking forward to the LA Games. We kind of need to be having that longevity. For myself, I always thought of a Olympic cycle in two-year mini cycles. So this first 2 years was always about building up the skills and the routines and the base that you need to compete where you're predicting the sport's going to be in another 2 years. Because the way we qualify for the Olympic Games as Australia, there's a World Cup series with 6 World Cups and a World Championships. The top 8 at World Championships, they automatically get their country berth, and then you fight through a point system in the World Cups to qualify the remaining 8 spots, and then there's some country rules that you can't have certain double ups, and it gets overly complex from there. So essentially we need to be placing in the top sort of 16 to 20 athletes. Countries like China, Japan, Russia, Belarus have always had strong teams and will push us further down the rankings, but they can only qualify 1 to 2 athletes.
Gotcha.
So if you're in that top 21, which is a semi-final, you're going to be in a sniff of those Olympic positions. So our girls have got a little bit of work to do. Our boys as well, just come off the World Cup tour. Brock Batty, who's up in the next group, has had some tremendous results. I'll talk a little bit more about him when he's up later on, but I think our men are in an okay-ish position, with like a little bit more depth with Luca and Nick and some of these other athletes who are on the fringe to be able to cement their positions onto those teams, and commit to that next 2-year World Cup cycle, where we're qualifying a spot. And then once you've got that spot, it's then every man for themselves, and Gymnastics Australia can kind of pick and create their own selection policy about how that is then divvied up and who they take to the games.
Yeah, right. Is it similar to artistic in that, say you do go to the Olympics, the next year is a little bit of a rest year where you go back to the basics and don't go full out, or is it different in trampoline?
It can be. After every games, I always took about 3 to 4 months off, just to reset mentally and physically. Particularly for us, we've got so much travel involved. All of the World Cups are hosted in Europe or North America or Asia. So we always have that added stress we're competing against athletes who are full-time, professional, well-paid athletes from multiple countries now. My last 3 Olympic cycles, I was working full-time as a primary school teacher as well.
Wow.
So we've always got added adversities or added challenges, Australia qualifying, just given that sports like swimming have had more Olympic success than gymnastics at that international scene. We've always been capable, and I think we've always had some good results. Gymnastics' only Olympic medal has come in trampolining from Jai Wells at the Sydney Olympic Games. So we've always proved results. We've always qualified a male. Our women have been sort of in and out of qualifications over the years. But it is always a tough situations. A lot of the athletes are funding their own slots to go to competitions. And it can be a challenge that if you don't have that financial backing, then that dream's not attainable. There is more money coming to the sport now, and a few of the athletes are playing the social media game quite well, and it is part and parcel of the sport now. So we've got our women up for our second group warming up. So they have 3 touches. This is to just get sort of acclimatized to the new gym. You'll notice the 2 trampolines out. The athletes can pick either trampoline that they want to jump on, and there can be massive differences between the equipment.
Wait, they compete on or warm up on?
So there's 2 trampolines out the back as well to warm up on, and then they get 3 touches into the new arena in the competition floor. But on the comp floor, they can pick whichever tramp you want to jump on, and there can be drastic differences between trampolines that will suit different athletes depending on their usage, their age. Air temperature can affect how the springs are operating. Like, there's a million and one factors. So I can tell by listening how fast or tight a trampoline is, and I always prefer a tighter trampoline. Some of the taller guys like to use those long levers and might prefer a slower trampoline, or you might want to try to pick one that's closest to what's in your gym. Usually your home trampolines are softer or slower than a competition trampoline that gets used 2 or 3 times a year. But yeah, you can have some really big differences between the trampolines, which is why there's 2 options for the athletes.
And you'll know as soon as you step onto the trampoline, yep, this is for me, or it takes a few bounces?
I would always try both in the training day beforehand. I could usually tell by listening to an athlete, to listen to the springs to see which one sounded fastest or tightest. And then if there was not much difference between the 2 on the competition floor, I would always just naturally pick the one closest to the judges. And that was just a strategic thing that I chose. Being a shorter athlete, being closer to the judges made it harder to see me, in my head at least anyway.
Because you're right above them.
Yeah, the closer you are to the trampoline, the less you see, which is why the judging panel sits 5 meters back and raised so that they can see what's actually happening in the air. And I always just thought it gave me a little bit of an advantage. I don't have any proof of that, but it helped my psyche. And
I'd say based on your bio, then it certainly did work.
Yeah, so, and there's a few like requirements for the uniforms as well. So we've got a black curtain as our backdrop. So men can choose to compete in either longs, like you would see on pommel in men's gymnastics, or in shorts. Most athletes are now opting for shorts, but they can't be, your longs can't be black or dark navy, because then you blend into the background of a big arena.
You don't want to be camouflaged. We need to see those.
Well, you do.
legs.
Like, as an athlete, I want to, because the judges see that my knees aren't bent. So there's a few rules now that are sort of changing. The women now are allowed to wear shorts, which I think is an amazing rule to make the sport more inclusive.
Definitely.
And more comfortable on the trampoline. Because you've got so many factors at play. You're jumping so high. Anything we can do to make our athletes more comfortable is a positive step in the right direction for our sport.
It is indeed. Now, I have to ask, when they're beginning, there's a certain amount of bounces they're taking, or is that timed?
So you get roughly a minute. There'll sometimes be a bell that they'll ring to let the athlete know that they're going to get a time penalty, but the time penalty is so small, you would rather abuse the time penalty and finish a routine than like really have it affect you. Most athletes will get to their full height within 4 to 5 bounces. And then from there, everyone's got their own thing. So I used to count to 6, and then you'll see the athletes do a press set where their arms drop down and then above their head. I would go on 6 unless I was in immediate danger. And that was probably not always the smartest decision, but I just didn't want to, I wanted to avoid overbouncing and that fatigue. And it wasn't physical fatigue, it was the mental fatigue. There's so much happening when you're flipping and spinning through the air that the less time that you're mentally on, for me, always was better. You just didn't, the mental side of your training gave out before your legs ever did.
Wow.
And then, so you'll see like what Karina did earlier, she'll stop and take that time. I think the time deduction's like a 0.3, which really is not a big deal at the end of the world, if you're going to then allow you to put up a 10 skill routine. Some athletes don't count their jumps at all and will just, all right, I feel ready to go, I feel like I'm at height. Some athletes will count 1, 2, like everyone's got their own little thing. But mine was always count to 6 and get going.
Yep, 6 is time. So at the end of the routine, there's a bit of an abrupt stop at times. Is that because they don't want to exceed the time limit?
No, so there's no time limit for once your routine begins. So once the athlete starts somersaulting and flipping, there'll be a judge on the panel that clicks a button in the middle of their first skill, and that's when the time of flight starts. So it takes it from the previous bounce, and then it's automatically programmed to just count the next 10 bounces.
Okay.
So once the last skill's finished, you then have the ability to do what we call an out bounce, which is after your 10th skill, you've got a straight bounce with no somersault, twist, or rotation. So then stop it, or kill bounce, or check on the bed. And then you can get a deduction for a lack of control in your check as well, like you would on vault or beam or any of our other gymnastics apparatus. But there is that sort of leeway of an out bounce. Some athletes will do their last skill to a kill bounce, but I always thought that they didn't have a respect for their ACLs if they were doing that. But then having that extra bounce will then also, it's an extra skill. So my coach, Brett Austin, always used to talk about the 11th skill in your routine was not celebrating too early, which we've seen before, an athlete cop a massive deduction for putting their out bounce onto the flyway. So technically 10 skills, but we always spoke about the 11th skill in training of, controlling it until you present it to the judges. Then you could, have a little fist bump or a smile and a wave and a hug on the coach on the way off, but not during your final bounce. Was never going to end too well in our gym. I never once did it actually, which I'm pretty proud of. I never had a celebration that ended poorly.
Nice.
I always kind of save that for back in the seats in the marshalling area to go, okay, that went well.
Now, how would you celebrate?
I was never too excessive. It was just a little smile and nod between coach, or if we were competing in Australia, I'd always find my wife or my mum, who was always at the competitions, and give them a little wave and say, yeah, I did it. But then I also had the unique experience of competing alongside my older brother for 16 years of our sporting life. So that always added in a little bit of a spicy family mix to it, whereas I always much preferred being before him, because then I was relaxed and I could watch him, because I'd normally get more nervous for him than I would for myself.
Double the nerves.
Or if we were in the same group, I would never look at his score, because I always wanted to beat him.
Healthy sibling rivalry.
Yeah, it was always positive. It was always very much in support, and he was very much in the mix for a few of the Olympic cycles that I was in the mix of, and particularly 2012 when I got my first nod as Olympic reserve for the London Games. That was over the top of my brother, and that was unfortunately due to him being injured. So he was sort of my biggest supporter there. He had broken his foot in this venue actually.
Did he fly over with you to the
So
games?
I was reserve, and I wasn't going to travel, but then a week before the games I actually blew up my knee in training and did my ACL and PCL. So I watched the London Games from a hospital bed, but Blake Gaudrew, who was our representative there, did Australia proud, and he'd qualified the spot. He was pretty close between the two of us, but he definitely had earned the spot for the London Games, and yeah, he did an amazing job, and unfortunately cheering him on from a hospital bed, but
Can't imagine how that would have felt.
yeah, I was out of the sport for though my original prognosis was my leg was being amputated, but I was luckily avoided that, and a couple of years of some pretty intense rehab, and found my way back onto the competition floor in 2014, which ironically ended up being my first World Championships final, where I placed 7th in the World Championships and had one of my best results. So I look back at it now as like one of the best things that ever happened. It really forged me as an athlete and made me much stronger mentally and physically.
New form of gratitude for the sport as well when you have to watch it.
It was one of those things where I was 19 at the time, and something that I loved got taken away from me. So it was awesome to be able to make my way back, and I was one of the first athletes in the world to have such a big injury of an ACL and PCL reconstruction and to come back. And since then, there's been a few athletes that we shared our rehab program with that my coach and myself developed and sort of recorded and detailed, and that's kind of helped become a bit of a guiding for a few other athletes.
And that's specific to trampoline gymnastics?
Yeah, it was something we created with a strength and conditioning coach and the right physical physios and medical team surrounding, and then there was a few other athletes around the world who started to have similar injuries, and now if an athlete has an ACL, it isn't really the sort of strike, your career's over like it used to be. And I'm pretty proud of my role in that. I've shared it with multiple athletes across the world, and they've obviously with their own teams, but always been there for a support base for any athlete that goes through it. And it's part and parcel of elite sport that you're going to have some bumps and bruises along the way. And I was pretty fortunate that was my only really major one. Had a few other little minor ones, sort of 6 weeks here and there, but that was my big sort of couple of years out of the sport that really kind of gave me the kick in the backside to really focus in on the training off the trampoline and get the nutrition right and get the strength and conditioning right, get my recovery right, which now in the world where there's so much information and things seems so normal that athletes are so much more educated than we were back in 2012 even, but it's cool to see now that these athletes are just light years ahead of where we were at the same ages.
Always developing and learning more. So what would you say if an athlete that does trampolining is listening? What's the best advice you can give to preserve your ACL and look after your knees and legs?
It's a tricky one. Like the sport can be very low impact until you have a fall. So it can be one that you can go your whole career without something if you don't have one of those big stacks, but it's inevitable, particularly at this level when you're competing on the international and national level. You're going to have those little bumps and bruises. I probably pushed through a few too many in my time, and now in my 30s, retired every now and then when it's cold out, it's a bit slow out of bed in the morning. But I think one of the things I'm proud of in my career is the longevity. And I wasn't wired to rest. And it was, my coach was sometimes telling me to go home in the off season where I wanted to be in the gym training. So it's about taking those times, those natural lulls in the season to rest, recover. You put demands on your family relationships and your education and other things to pursue excellence in this field. So to be able to know when the right time to push is and when the right time to pull back is probably something that coaches are getting better as well at guiding, and making sure that their athletes are, in a position to have a career like myself that stretched into my 30s, which is not common in gymnastics, and it's more common now. One of the top female athletes in the world is Bryony Page out of GB, and she's, I believe, 34 this year. So it is more common now, and the sports science is getting better, but it's still few and far in between.
So hard when you love it and you're so passionate about it and it is your life, to pull back during those quiet times is a difficult decision to make.
Yeah, you get a bit lost and don't know what to do with yourself. And I was pretty lucky that lucky in a way that I wasn't a full-time professional athlete at all times. Like, I always had my job, my career as a school teacher was always there waiting for me. And I kind of didn't feel the need to give up trampolining so long as I was enjoying it. And I think that's pretty reflective in particular the last 5 years of my career when I came back from the circus is I was just having fun, and some of my best results came from the fact that I knew I was an older athlete. I knew I wasn't keeping up as much with the 17-year-olds. I knew I wasn't learning new skills, or I was still performing at a top level, and my results showed that, but it almost took the pressure off me that it wasn't my whole career. It was a little bit more of like, I was training more than, a casual sports person playing, footy on the weekends and things, but there was that bit more of a holistic balance in my life between my now wife and that relationship and my family and other elements like that.
A class full of little people
Yeah.
cheering you on.
Well, one of my best result was at the 2022 World Championships in Bulgaria, where I made my second final, and I ended up placing 6th in that final. And we got back on the plane, and I flew from Bulgaria back into Sydney, and I got on the train at Sydney and went out to Hornsby train station, and the Year 6 Canberra bus picked me up in my team uniform from Hornsby train station, and I went on a school excursion for 3 days to Canberra.
No way. That's how you recover from a huge placing across the world.
It probably wasn't the best choice for my jet lag, but
School camp.
I got on the bus. My class cheered and gave me a little bit of a moment, but that was it, and it was kind of business as usual. And it was, I always loved that it was like a humbling way, in that when I went out on the competition floor, it wasn't my be all and end all. I still loved it. I still cared about it. I still wanted it. I still had that burning desire to sort of fulfill some of those accomplishments that were missing from my career. But I also knew that when I went back to school on Monday that it was a spelling test and we were back to business as usual. So,
do they call you Mr. Swaddling? What do they call you?
Yeah, Mr. Swaddling at school. But a few of my classmates, a few of my students followed into the sport now, and that was always a unique one when they walked into the gym with me, and that was the rule that I was Sean. And in the gym, like, this is my home, this is my safe place. Like, this is you're coming into my world and my family now. So my name's Sean, and I'd run up to you the next day at school and go, "Hi, Sean."
No, not here, not
Yeah.
here. It's Mr. now. Oh, that's so cool. So wait, you got off the train onto the bus. Was your wife there
No,
to give you your...
I went straight to Canberra with my bag that was
Straight
packed
there.
from World Championships.
She didn't even have a sandwich.
Heavily jet lagged. One of the teachers luckily had a coffee for me, and 3 days in Canberra with 60 10-year-olds.
Non-stop. Did you go to the Mint?
Yeah,
Canberra
we
Mint?
did.
Yeah.
We saw the Sydney Olympic medals. We did
Oh, cool.
Questacon. It was great
So
fun.
Sydney Olympics, I mean, that was 26 years ago. You said you've
Yeah.
done 25 years. So was that an inspiration for you? Were you there watching, or?
So my brother and I went to the Sydney Olympics and watched taekwondo and swimming. We had no idea that this wonderful world existed. And my older brother, Ty Swaddling, he spotted Jai Wallace's routine on the Channel 7 News. And it was a quick little snippet of a few skills. And he went, "That's what I want to do." So Mum found the local club. And my brother signed up, and I was too young to stay home alone, so I got dragged along. And I got a bit bored the first night sitting on the stage watching, and signed up as well. And 26 years later, my brother and I are both still heavily involved in the sport. We were the highest placed brothers synchro pair in World Championship history.
That's so cool.
And we had some good battles over the years, and if you ask me, I was the better gymnast. If you ask him, he'll probably say the otherwise. But
how can we dial him up? Get him on the commentary.
It was really something that forged our family. My mum last couple of weeks ago just got life membership with Gymnastics New South Wales. She's still currently involved out there somewhere on the floor as the New South Wales team chaperone and management.
If you see her on the camera, can you point her out?
I think she's down there somewhere. She's lovingly known as the trampoline mum. She's been the chaperone on many World Championship teams and has been there for many of the families in the sport over the years. That's her in the back corner there in the blue New South Wales jumper.
Oh,
So yeah, it's become a family affair for our sport, for our family in this sport, and something that I don't think they'll ever get rid of us.
That's good. That's how we like it.
Yeah, we're in for life.
And then TBC on your little ones.
Yeah,
Maybe.
look, my brother's kids are a little bit older, and they've now started into the sport in the recreational level.
Unavoidable, maybe.
Yeah, the plan is my brother can coach my kids, and I'll coach his, so that we don't have to cross those pathways. But our women now are up here for our second group, ready to kick off the second round with Rebecca Thomas out of South Australia. South Australia's been one of the strongholds for the sport for a while. Once upon a time, the National Training Centre was based down in Adelaide, and they've still got some of the strongest coaches and producing some of our top, particularly women in the sport. So she's got full in, half out pike, Barani straight, double back tuck, pike half out, half in, half out tuck, half out tuck, pike double back, Barani straight, and 1.5 in, half out pike there. So some of these younger girls are kind of missing that 10 doubles. That's kind of where we want to see the women at as a minimum if they're going to be looking to crack onto the national team, and preferably, like we saw from Karina earlier on, at least 1 or 2 triple somersaults in there as well. Kicking off the men now, we've got Bryce Edwards. He just returned as well from the World Cup trips. He's one of those athletes I was talking about earlier who's very, very capable of some strong performances. Probably hasn't put together his best competition yet, and he's one of those fringe dwellers for the World Championships team this year. He's one of our higher bouncers in the world, in Australia at the moment. Starts high, we'll see if he can maintain it. So he's got a triff pike, half in, half out triff tuck, 1.5 in, half out pike, full in, half out pike, half in, Rudy out pike, half pike, half out tuck, and that full in double out. So all of our skills in trampolining have named based solely off what the actual skill is. So you've got the in somersault and then the out somersault. So if you do a half in, half out, you mean you're doing a half twist in the first somersault and a half twist in the second somersault. There's also some pretty funny terminology like a Rudy. A Rudy is a 1.5 twist. So you'll see some of the boys doing a Rudy out or a Rudy out triff. That means the 1.5 twist for a Rudy out triff is performed in the third somersault. So it sounds a bit funny, but there is some structure behind the lingo.
And then a layout is when your body is straight, tuck is when your knees are tucked in.
Yeah, so you'll see athletes perform skills in 3 positions. Pike, with the legs straight, and they'll be trying to get their chest flat onto their knees. Tuck with the heels into the bottom and knees tied into the chest, and then straight. You'll see some lower level straddles, but you won't see somersault done in a straddle position. So you can repeat a skill so long as it's done in a different position. So, for example, I'm assuming Sebastian's third skill then was going to be another triff tuck. So he done it. His first skill was a triff pike. You can repeat the skill in a different position, but you can't repeat it in the same position.
Okay.
So if you repeat 2 skills in the same position, you don't get the degree of difficulty for the second time you do it. So it's essentially a 0 skill. The routine can continue, but you don't get the difficulty.
So the composition of routines is another thing that comes into play because you have to be well thought out in that, don't you?
Yeah, so most athletes will have their routines pre-planned and structured and trained, and hopefully have done their 10,000 reps on them. Most athletes will start forwards, and you'll see the forwards, backwards pattern that we're seeing here in front of us now. So half out pike, another backwards skill, double back tuck. And it's just a natural flow that comes with the sport. And it just kind of makes sense now. So we've got a young Tasmanian athlete up here. There's the triff tuck, half in, half out pike, full in, half out pike, Rudy out pike. So there's a 1.5 twist in the second somersault, half in, half out tuck, half out pike, and a full in double out. So in the first double, he did a double back somersault straight. Then in the first somersault, he completed a full twist. And in the second somersault, a double twist. So you can repeat that skill if you phase it differently, and you do, for example, a 1.5 twist in the first somersault and a 1.5 twist in the second somersault. So you see it gets a little bit tricky, and you got to have an eye for it. Most athletes won't run that risk, and they've got enough skills in their arsenal to piece it together to kind of make the judge's life somewhat simple and make sure that they're getting accredited for the skills that they're actually doing.
Because the judges won't know what skills you're going to do before you step on the tramp, will they?
The gymnast will submit a routine card that will have written down in a code, in an international code of like numbers that the judges will be able to interpret. And that's more so for the ease of the flow of the competition. The athlete can deviate from what's written on the card without any penalty. It just means that if the DD judge, there's 2 of them on the panel, if they both write down what the same athlete has done, it means the competition can flow a bit faster and you can get on to the next athlete.
Because it does go quite quickly in trampoline gymnastics, doesn't it?
Yeah, so next up we've got Avi Morgan. He's another one of these athletes that's right on the cusp of that national team. He's just been dealing with a few injuries the last few years. Very talented young gymnast. Unfortunately, misses that one there. Oop, took a little bit of a tumble off in the coach's arms there, but slowed him down with that mat. But yeah, Avi's one of those ones fighting for those last positions, and he's put himself in a tough position there to be up for this second routine.
So great that there's another opportunity.
It didn't used to be like that. You used to compete 2 different routines, and it was a total score between your 2. And it was always so deflating if you did miss your first routine that you kind of knew your day was done. And sometimes it was like, felt like a pointless to get up and finish out the competition, which sometimes led to like a really free routine, which, you know, ended up a really good score, which was then frustratingly pointless. The new format now has opened up a lot more strategy and a lot more sort of gamesmanship and tactics around the sport, which I kind of enjoy. You see some of the top guys will come out with a safer routine first, and then if everything goes smoothly, they'll up to a bigger difficulty, or go like full send, and they'll come out and jump an extra meter higher. And obviously the higher you are, the more out of control and potential comes. But there's enough scope in the 4 elements that make up our score that different athletes will have different approaches. For myself, I was never great at one thing. What I was great at is I usually finished a routine, and I was kind of pretty good at everything. I had good height maintenance, I had good difficulty, good execution, pretty good horizontal displacement. Whereas one of the boys we competed against in the last cycle, Blake Rutherford, he jumped phenomenally high, like one of the highest bouncers in the world. So his strategy was just jump higher than everyone else, and a lot of the times that worked. Some athletes won't be able to have the execution and might just have all the tricks in the books and go and put out a really difficult routine and hope that they finish it. So there's, depending on what your skill set is, there's enough ways to manipulate the rules to have success, which is why having a look at the field here, you can see so many different body types and that are accessible to the top level, because there's so many ways to go about getting your score, and they're all weighted relatively similar. Time of flight has the biggest proportion of most people's scores, so if you jump high, you're probably going to be in for a good shout.
The higher you jump, the more difficult it is to land in the center of the trampoline. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, the higher it is, you're going to be a little bit less controlled for some athletes. So up now on the men's trampoline, we've got one of our top athletes. This is Brock Batty. He was our 2024 Paris Olympian. And he's just come off a phenomenal World Cup. And he's probably one of the best examples of what we're just talking about general consistency. Doesn't jump the highest in the world, doesn't have the biggest difficulty. His execution is probably his strong suit, but he does them all very well and is quite consistent as well as a performer. He just came off some really strong performances in the World Cups. I think he placed 11th and 12th at the 2 World Cups respectively. He's right on the cusp of being our top 10 in the world. And you can see
out of the screen so high.
You can see the difference already of how high he's jumping. And if he's going to do a similar routine, I'm expecting about 4 triple somersaults here. So first one there, Triff Pike at skill 3, half in, half out Triff Tuck. A little bit of trouble there, but he maintains it pretty well. Substitute there, another substitute. So not the routine that Brock would have been desiring here. But as I said earlier, these guys are coming off and put skill 10 onto the flyway there. Some of these guys are coming off 3 weeks of back-to-back competitions across Portugal, Switzerland, and now internationals. Brock's probably one of the few athletes whose scores that he's already put up are going to put him onto the team for World Championships. So I know Brock is a competitive young man and he'll want to win the national title, but that all happens tomorrow. Yeah. So today is just about putting yourself into that final, and then in the final it's a 0 start. So everyone goes back to 0, one routine for all the marbles, and see what you got. Whereas today we've got those two opportunities to hit up a score. He's already got a position where he's going to be on the team, given what he's already done internationally this year. But in saying that, I know he's a strong competitor, and I know he'll be disappointed with that one and want to come out for this second routine and show the country what he's got.
Interesting to see what he does do, and interesting that he went the trampoline closest to the judges like you did.
It seems to be a favourite, the far tramp, and a lot of the times that will be the case. There'll be one trampoline that is a little bit better, but each athlete has their own little preference. Sometimes it can be like the lighting in the arena as well. If the tramps are under the certain floodlights, our sport is very visual, and if you're looking into one of those lights, it can be absolutely blinding and you can really struggle to actually see where you're going. Just saw a pretty solid routine there from Paddy Schulzer out of Tasmania. He was one of my former synchro partners as well.
Oh.
One of the strong young men out of Tasmania, and probably another one of those gentlemen that's, playing around with those fringe positions of slot number 3 or 4 onto the national team.
How do you find your synchro partner?
It's a little bit of, it sounds a bit crazy, but it's a mishmash of whoever's on the team. So my longest standing synchro partner was my brother, but then when he retired a bit earlier than me, I actually jumped synchro with 5 of the men currently out there. My last synchro partner was Brock, who was just up on the trampoline then in 2024, and there was a 13-year age gap between us.
Oh, wow.
He was still in school and I was a teacher, so I didn't have him call me Mr. Swirling though.
Strictly Sean.
But a lot of the time the coaches will, out of the 4-man team, just pick one. Styles or weight can be the deciding factor, or sometimes it can be the skill set that the athletes have that match well together. But it can be sometimes a little bit of a mishmash. The 2 athletes from New South Wales, Brock and Nick, they both train in the same gym, so they train synchro a little bit more regularly, so the coaches will kind of keep them together because they can prepare. Where when Brock and I jumped synchro, he was training out of Victoria, I was in New South Wales, and we were sending each other videos over Messenger and time of flight scorecards from our gyms in our respective states to try and match up where we were height-wise. So
I cannot believe that. You would never think so.
Yeah.
But you have to, I guess.
And it was a little bit done by feel. So at the time, I was the more experienced athlete than Brock was. He was just cracking into the national team at the senior level after a really strong junior career as a junior world champion. But you lower your height down to where it's both manageable for each of you, and then one athlete is the leader and one athlete is the follower. So I was the follower, which meant Brock's job was to stay nice and steady, and then I matched him, because you don't want 2 people trying to follow each other because it ends up just absolute chaos. So one athlete kind of ignores the other, and the other one does all the hard work and the heavy lifting to try and find.
And you're just watching in your peripheral to stay
a little bit of visuals, but it's all done off hearing. So you listen to the springs. So you listen to if you can hear the other trampoline first, that means they're lower than you. If you hear it after them, and if you can't hear them, it means you're in time.
And you're adjusting as you go throughout the routine.
Yeah. So at the peak for my brother and I, it was almost, there wasn't a leader and a follower. We just intuitively knew each other because we trained daily together.
And lived and
yeah.
everything.
So, and we were the same sort of body type and size and technique. So that was probably
Genetic makeup helps.
the smoothest we ever had. This is a pretty strong routine here from Bryce. That's going to put him pretty comfortably into the final, and cement his sort of claim onto one of those 4 or 5 positions for the men, or 3rd or 4th position for the men's national team. And we've got one of our New Zealand guests up here. So it's quite common that New Zealand will come across the ditch to join in for our Australian National Championships. But if they win, they can't take home our trophy.
Don't take our medal.
Yeah. So you'll have an overall, for example, if they were to come second, you would have a overall second place for the competition and then a residential second place. So sometimes when there's a New Zealand athlete in the field, you'll see a bit of a crowded podium sometimes, but you still need an Australian champion from Australia to take home each one of our medals on our podium. But we love having them over here. There's also a Trans-Tasman competition that happens every year, and it rotates between Australia and New Zealand. They're a very good rivalry for us and sort of our closest neighbours to us. And during my time, I used to go across the ditch and do training camps with the New Zealand boys, and vice versa. So we always a bit of rivalry, but also a friendly rivalry of trying to make Oceania stronger.
Is there much difference in their training techniques and practices?
Not really. For a long time, they had an Australian national coach over there, but arguably at the moment they've got the top men and top women in Oceania. Dylan Schmidt is kind of like once of every 10-year athlete. He took a silver medal at the Tokyo Olympic Games, I believe, and has been world champion, and he's a phenomenal athlete on the men's side. He's not here currently at this competition. And then his now fiance, they just got engaged 2 weeks ago in Switzerland. Maddie is one of the top females in the country at the moment. She was the athlete that just competed 5 triple somersaults on the women's side for the first time.
Wow.
So they're kind of the powerhouse New Zealand couple. But we've got a little bit of ways to go for both of them, but we've probably got the depth. We've got more numbers. We'll be able to field a full team at World Championships of 4, whereas New Zealand's traditionally had really quality athletes, but maybe not the quantity that Australia can put forwards.
So they'd just be competing as individuals rather than putting in a team?
Yeah, so they'll still compete. There is a team event at World Championships, but they're just not eligible for that without the 4 men or 4 women. They have had it in the past, but it's few and far in between for the Kiwis. Just a small sport for a small country.
Did you see that we did artistic mixed teams?
Oh, cool.
They've just introduced that in Australia because Los Angeles Olympics have announced that they're doing it in 2028. So we did it for the first time here. New South Wales won.
We have mixed synchronized trampolining.
That's cool. One sec. Just going to cut to a bit of acro here. So currently warm-up is underway, is that right?
Yes, so this is our junior under-17s tumbling for the women, and there is one of our country's brightest stars in this event, Alexa Kashan. She's already won about 1,000 junior world titles, and she's one of our really bright and up-and-coming stars in the sport, and she's just phenomenal. She currently had a crack at the world difficulty record at the New South Wales State Championships a few weeks ago, but this is just their warm-up at the moment.
World difficulty?
Yeah, so even as a younger athlete believe she's only about 16 years old, she's up there competing, and I know there's probably a lot of women around the world that are hoping to try and sneak in a world championship or 2 before she's age eligible to compete at the senior level. She's just a phenomenal talent, and she's actually coached by her dad, who is the New South Wales coach, Dimma Kashan. And she's one of 4 kids, and all of them are here at the state titles. And and she's just an absolute weapon on the tumbling floor.
So what's the most difficult tumbling line do you think you've ever seen or heard of?
So for the women, it was 3 double somersaults done consecutively. So you'll see that was a full twist in the middle there. That will turn into a double somersault at the next level up for the senior girls at the international level. But it is impressive. I always really enjoy the tumbling events at World Championships. I think trampolining, when it's done at its like top quality level, sometimes I compare it to like a little bit of figure skating. Like it almost looks too effortless. It looks too graceful, and people can't really comprehend just how difficult trampolining is. Whereas power track tumbling is so fast, it's so loud, it's so powerful, and I think everyone at some point has probably stood on a gymnastics floor or a air track or even the grass and gone, can I do a backflip, and thought about it and gone, no. So it's a little bit more relatable. So this is Alexa coming up for her first pass now.
Here we go.
So they do 8 skills down a 25 meter track, and the goal is to land on the blue mats there at the end.
That's not a whole lot of run up to get that amount of power.
So full in, back out straight, and then a full in, back out pike there to finish there for Alexa. So that is a big.
That looks stuck. Hard to tell with the camera angle, but I think that was stuck.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal athlete, and you'll see the difference in the power between her and some of the other girls. And that's not to take away from the other girls in this event. Alexa is the current world champion, back-to-back reigning in her age division. She is just phenomenal, and that's her dad there walking alongside her. And Dimmer holds a special place in Australian tumbling. So it wasn't too long ago that tumbling was actually removed from the schedule at Australian National Championships, because the track they're on now is from the end of the mats all the way to the start of the run-up is about 30-ish metres long. That doesn't pack away overly well and is really expensive. So our sport actually went through a phase where tumbling was pretty much dead. There wasn't enough athletes to financially warrant, there's a beautiful double back tuck there, to financially warrant having tumbling at Australian National Championships. And Dimitri, originally from Belarus, he also came out of the circus. He came and opened up his club in Western Sydney, and since then tumbling has just boomed.
Thank you, Dimmer, because this is well worth seeing. It's
also
just world class.
We had the right coaches
impressive.
pushing it, but we also had the advancements in some of the equipment. So the air floors just boomed, and that created a lot more accessibility where clubs could set up and pack up with a lot more ease. So you can see the air track on the right hand side. That just made it so much more accessible. They were cheaper, they could be packed away, and you could train on a basketball court. Whereas to pack a tumbling floor away just wasn't an option. You needed a permanently set up gym. So there was a few things, but Dimmer's been a big part of it. South Australia has a really strong tumbling club run by one of my fellow ex-teammates as well down there. And then, yeah, it's really starting to boom now, and Australia is one of the top contenders on it. We have the current male world champion, who we'll see later on in the calendar for this weekend, Ethan McGuinness, 2-time world champion at the international level, and he's a phenomenal athlete to watch. He's just muscle. Like, he's just a physical specimen. He's so powerful, he's so strong, and I'm sure he'll be able to put up some pretty spectacular performances later on this week.
Yeah, it definitely does continue. So we've got trampoline gymnastics until Sunday, the 12th of July. Rhythmic, Tuesday the 14th to Monday the 20th. Acrobatic, Tuesday the 14th to Friday the 17th. And aerobic gymnastics, 18th, 19th and 20th. So keep your eye on the Oz Gymnastics Instagram stories for the live streamed events, or come and see it in person if you're in Sydney, or fly down or up for it. ozgymnasticschamps.com.au is where you can grab your tickets. There are day passes, unlimited passes, and a VIP package.
If you are curious, it is one of these sports that you do need to see in person to really do it justice. It is hard to bring across on a screen, and it's just, I'm obviously biased as my love for the sport, but it is one of those unique sports that it isn't on display very often, And when people find out what I've done and, my connection to the Olympics, everyone always says the same thing to me, goes, I love watching the gymnastics at the Olympic Games. Everyone always has the same response. I go, that's great, it's on year round. Like, oh, how do I watch it? Where do I do? Like, there is an interest in it. It's just, obviously, there's other more popular sports in Australia, so come on down, though. You will not regret it.
You'd equate it to a photo of a sunset.
Yeah.
When you look at it on a tiny little screen on your phone on Instagram, it's like, oh yeah, cool, pretty. But when you see it in person, it's, wow, this is actually happening, because the height alone is worth being here in person for. You just cannot get a grasp of how high the athletes are going and how fast.
Even sometimes in the big arenas, it doesn't do it justice. Like, it's something you do need to see up close and personal. And you get athletes just hooked on it. It's so much fun. It's such an inclusive gymnastic sport as well. We are so welcoming to all body types can flourish in this sport. Find your local club, get involved.
And also just the vibe, the support coming from the crowd, the camaraderie.
So before the Sydney 2000 Olympics, trampolining was its own separate entity away from gymnastics, and we actually amalgamated into gymnastics in a bid to try and get trampolining into the Olympic Games, which we were obviously successful to do. So at times we developed our own little culture away from the world of gymnastics, and we've adopted what I think are some of the best parts of artistic and rhythmic gymnastics into our sport, but we still have held our own culture as one of the only mixed sports, with both men and women competing on the same apparatus, under the same rules, under the training in the same gyms. We've got team elements now coming into it with all-round team events that will be happening here Sunday. It's just, I think it's the best gym sport, but I'm slightly biased.
You've had 25 years to become biased. Fair call.
So you see a row of whips there into a double back tuck for our New South Wales gymnast there. So I think we've got our Tassie boys up here. Rowan just taking a moment to regather himself. Rowan up on the trampoline now actually is one of the most talented aerialists I think I've ever seen. He's already competed at a World Championships for trampolining, but he's actually getting pulled into cliff diving.
Cliff diving?
He started his own league of cliff diving off an oil rig in Tasmania. He travels around the world filming cliff jumping activities. He's right into his social media game. He's a bright young entrepreneur and a very talented athlete. So he at a time when he was focused on trampolining was one of the bright stars, and now he's getting pulled in multiple directions, but it's awesome to still see him here. I know he's probably not as trained as he would have liked to be leading into this event, as you can see there in Mr. Routine, but if you find him popping up in different areas of the world, don't be surprised to see his name in the future doing great things.
It's amazing how much this sport translates to other things that you can go into. For you, for example, you.
Well, Rhiannon Nifland, our 8-time Red Bull cliff diving world champion, was a training partner of mine from Newcastle in diving and trampolining. She came up at East Lakes Trampoline Sports with me and has obviously gone on to do great things. But we've got Alexa back up now for her second pass. So they'll do 2 passes. One will be a twisting, one will be a somersaulting pass. And unlike trampolining, it is a combination of their scores that will go together to determine who goes through to the finals. Would
you put your first pass as the easiest or more difficult one for you?
For me, I would always start off with an opener as like a settler to try and put a score on the board, take the pressure off, and then come out with my more experimental or mixed up routine. Double back straight there for Alexa, into whip, full in, full out in the tuck position. Massive, massive. That would hold up on the senior international scale at World Championships.
Easily. A lot of people up on their feet in the crowd, really into it.
She's a crowd favourite. We've got Brock Batty up now again. Now, he missed his first routine, so hopefully see a stronger outing now from Brock. As you can see, he's almost out of the screen there. Full in half out pike and half pike.
He's up on his feet.
He's up on his feet. He's okay. Obviously not the routine that Brock was hoping for. It looked like he had a leg buckle there. which just sort of kicked him a bit sideways. Some expert mat work there from his coach, Belinda Cox, who's been a long-standing member of the Australian team for a very, very long time. Not the day that Brock would have been hoping for. And unfortunately, I think that might hopefully be enough to keep him in the mix for the final. But I know his first routine wasn't what he was after. 51.70 might just do enough to sneak through in that top 8 into tomorrow's. And again, that's the beauty of the way the scoring works. Doesn't matter what happens today. So long as you come out in top 8, then you're going to go through to the final and anything can happen.
How many are in the field for men's and women's?
In the men's, we have 19 athletes, which is a little bit on the small side. We had a little bit of an exodus after the Paris 2024 games with myself and a few of the other older athletes deciding to hang up the leotard, and it's now down to these young boys who coming through. I mean, Brock, I think, is still only 18 years old. Like, he's a teenager. He's got such a bright future ahead of him. And I think he's got all the makings to put together a really stellar career and take some of my records and titles from me, which I will happily cheer him on there. Those records are made to be broken, and that means that trampolining is in good and strong hands. Solid routine here from our Tasmanian athlete, Patrick Schulter. There's our full in double out. Miller. Paddy was with me on the 2022 World Championships team, and then had a little bit of a break to get some sort of life affairs in order. But it's great to see him back on the trampoline, because he's another one of those athletes that, given the day, could easily pop into that national team and be a solid member of our squad.
Do some people have more twisting in their routines and some prefer to go for, say, a triple salt? Like, is twisting easier and more natural for some people?
Yeah, so a lot of people will be the somersaulters or twisters, or there's different twisting patterns as well that an athlete will develop. Essentially, you want more of a holistic, rounded athlete that can have the choice. For myself, I grew up on different sets of rules and went through 4 different Olympic cycles with 4 different sets of rules.
Love an adjustment, don't we?
Yeah, and it was tricky, because when I was a junior athlete, it was, certain skills were valued more, so we put more time into them, and they kind of died away as I aged a little bit. So it was one of those adapt or die moments, and not only with my age and other life commitments happening, the new rules personally didn't overly suit me. So there was a natural sort of exit after Paris to say, okay, I've had a great career. I don't think I can keep up with the 17-year-olds the way I used to now in my mid-30s, and a father of 2. But yes, you will have athletes that will naturally swing towards a certain style. And as I was saying earlier, the scope within our point system allows it, and anyone on their day can win, whether you jump the highest or not. So I was one of the lowest jumpers in the world. But what my strength was for my time of flight was I didn't drop high. So I started lower than most, but I finished higher than most.
So throughout your 10 skills, your height increased.
So most senior men will, their split for their first skill will be somewhere between 1.8 to 1.9 seconds. Mine was usually about 1.6 to 1.7.
Wow.
But my last skill was still at 1.5 or 1.6, whereas most men would drop down. So what they were getting away from me on my first couple of skills, I was making up across the back half of my routine. And my coach and I picked up on that over the years, and it was a skill that I realized that I had that others didn't, and we worked at it to make that a really big strength of mine, whereas other athletes were able to just jump higher with longer levers or stronger or heavier, whatever it may be, better technique, and they went a different path, and you could see us both out on the competition floor putting out similar scores.
And were they getting lower towards the end due to fatigue, or?
It could be a bit of both. It can be technique. It was a riskier game if you started lower, because you needed the center of the trampoline where the cross is obviously the smoothest and where you're going to get the most amount of bounce. So if you had a routine sway, that would affect my score. So you always kind of needed to be steady and under control. but it just shows the amount of different body types that can succeed in trampolining, which I think makes it so accessible at that top end, where I think you can normally spot an artistic gymnast pretty quickly. They all kind of have a mesomorph, a similar body type, whereas you walk through the airport sometimes in your Australian gymnastics uniform and like I'm 163 centimeters and like look like an artistic gymnast, but then my teammate was 6'1" and skinny as.
You've got people that look like NRL players that are being offered NRL contracts.
Yeah, so it was always an interesting one to see. Like, I was one of the shortest athletes on the international circuit, and the newer trampolines and newer rules started to benefit the taller, skinnier guys, whereas I probably would have been better suited from 2000 to 2004, where the rules suited shorter, stockier people like myself. So I think there's so much scope to manipulate your training and routine and structure and different things to suit what you've got in front of you.
Yeah, so much to work with. And like you were saying, with the scoring, there's the difficulty, execution, time of flight, horizontal displacement. You can really lean into what your strength is, figure out how to maximize that, and then, do what you can with the others, or just be an all-rounder, like you said. Now, horizontal displacement, when we were chatting about the scoring earlier, we didn't go right into that. So is that landing in the center of the tramp?
So in the middle of the tramp, you've got the cross, and then there's a few other little boxes around it, and the force plates under the four feet of the trampoline can pinpoint exactly where the athlete lands on the trampoline for each skill. If you land in the middle box, you get a 0 deduction for that skill. If you land in the two little outside boxes, 0.1. The longer, skinnier boxes on the side are a 0.2. And then the corner boxes in the very far corner, four corners of the trampoline, is a 0.3 deduction. So
does that start at 10?
Yep. For the landing of each skill will be where the machine picks it up. Usually athletes won't prioritize it because it's the smallest percentage of your score, and if you do the rest well, horizontal displacement will usually take care of itself.
Okay.
If you're landing in the 0.3 boxes, you're probably not going to maintain your height. You're probably not going to do the difficult skills that you plan on doing, and that's when you're going to make those substitutes like we saw a few athletes do tonight, or worst case scenario end up missing the trampoline altogether, which happens in our sport, hence all the matting that you can see around our double mini apparatus and trampolining. It's there for a reason, and is part and parcel of the sport.
When you begin the sport, do you have set classes where you learn how to fall safely, like in artistic?
Some clubs will. We always teach 2 feet on or 2 feet off on the trampoline. You don't want to land 1 foot on a bouncy part and 1 foot on a non-bouncy part. That's where the really bad injuries happen. A lot of the clubs will have their trampolines pushed together side by side so that at least one side of the trampoline has no fall risk. But as always, you do it in a safe and progressive manner. Athletes aren't walking in and doing what we saw tonight on their first day.
No, definitely not. That's many years of the work.
Our lower level athletes, ours is almost the inverse of artistic gymnastics, where levels 1 to 3 you can progress through relatively quickly. There's not like the physical barriers that you'll have of like a pull-up on a bar or a ring or pommel or those sorts of things, and you'll be able to progress through a little bit faster. But then once you get up to those top end levels, that's when the progression will slow down, and that's when the skills escalate, and you got to make sure you're progressing safely and in a way that is safe. We break everything down into quarters. So before you learn a back somersault, you learn a back drop, which is your first quarter of your somersault. Then you learn front drop up to feet, which is your last quarter of a somersault. Then we do a skill which is called a back pullover, which is where you jump on your back, then you go over your head up to your feet. So then you get 3/4 of your somersault, and then we kind of piece it all together. So we always have very clear and logical progressions based on the quarters of our somersaults. So we're making sure that athletes are progressing in a logical manner.
And How much of your training is done physically on the trampoline? Because obviously there's harnesses, there's the foam pit, but how much of it is spent on the tramp?
Majority of it will be done on the trampoline, particularly in the younger years. As an athlete like myself who is still competing in my 30s, that split drastically changed because I'd already done so many hours of the technique and the repetition on the trampoline that it became more about keeping my body healthy and recovered, ready to go for those harder sessions. But that was done purposely for me. When the younger athletes, you can get a lot more reps, and a lot of it's done on the trampoline. A lot of the clubs will kind of, very similar to artistic gymnastics, will finish their session with maybe 30 minutes to 15 minutes of like a strength and conditioning, which is usually body weight and mobility and flexibility to make sure the athletes are prepped and ready to go. But for the most part, it is on the equipment to make sure that you're getting as much time in the air as you can so that we can progress those skills in a safe manner. But there's 1,001 foam pits now around the country. You've got harnesses and rigs. There's so much more technology that's coming into it that is making it safer and more accessible for people to progress through without having to put a wetsuit on and go to the 3-meter diving boards.
And just getting used to the height factor. Have you ever come across anyone that is afraid of heights but push through their fear to do this sport?
Yeah, so a common pathway into trampolining sports is sometimes through artistic gymnastics. A lot of clubs will now share spaces, trampolining and artistic, and sometimes you get that artistic gymnast who maybe isn't willing to jump up to that 15-20 hour mark that happens so young in artistic gymnastics, and they'll spot the trampoline gymnasts over who aren't maybe doing those hours at those ages, and they'll think, oh yeah, I can go and do that. And it's such a different technique. They've got the physicality, they've got the strength, they've got the mobility.
They can do the skills a lot of the time.
Yeah, but it's so different in a way that like it's so much harder to slow a skill down than it is to speed it up.
Yeah.
So they're used to doing a full twist back, for example, on a tumble track like we're watching now, or like an artistic floor, and then they try and take that across to trampolining, and you've got an extra 0.7 or a whole second, and all of a sudden everything changes. And we've had a lot of gymnasts make that transition successfully. Dominic Clark, who had an amazing Olympic Games for Australia at the 2020 Olympic Games, he came through artistic, and he was one of the ones who was able to make that transition quite successfully. He's not alone. There's been other gymnasts as well that have been able to do it, but you find a lot of them are now finding their way into power track tumbling or into double mini because it's similar to vault. So that is one pathway that a lot of athletes will find their way into trampolining.
What's it like going the other way? Have you ever tried, just say you were to go out onto the floor right now, onto a tumbling track, what would that be like for you? What skills would you be able to put down, given that you're so used to that hard rebound from the trampoline?
I was notoriously bad at tumbling, so I'd be able to do a row of back handsprings or flicks maybe, but for me, it was always trampolining, and myself and my brother were one of the few people who didn't do gymnastics first, so we've always just done trampolining. So it was a skill that I learned, like your handstands and cartwheels and stuff didn't come natural to me, whereas maybe jumping on a trampoline a little bit more so. But I did have my days coaching artistic gymnastics, and I found the best way for me to articulate it to the kids was to learn it myself. So I got myself up to about a level 5 in men's artistic gymnastics.
That's
and
decent.
I was already on the national team for trampolining at that time, so hopefully I could find my way through it. But it definitely gave me a built-in respect for the other gym sports as well. And I think now there's more community at the top end with social media and gyms like SGAC in Sydney, where athletes are now all training under the one roof, whereas the sports used to be quite separated or in different venues and stuff. And we're seeing the rise of more of these super centres that are bringing gym sports all under the one roof and starting to build on the knowledge of what we have. Like, you have a look at what we're watching now with these power track tumblers warming up. I don't think there's going to be anyone with an artistic qualification that doesn't look at this and go, oh my God, we could learn.
Yeah.
We could bring these tumblers in and improve our floor. Like, they round off different. They they hurdle different. Maybe that can translate over to vault, and vice versa for trampolining. I've had the privilege of working with elite wakeboarders, surfers, snowboarders, who all aerial skiers who all come from trampolining and want our knowledge to transfer into other aerial sports. It's the crossovers there, and the knowledge we're so willing to share in our sport and take as well, and learn more about what the other gym sports do, which they probably prepare a little bit physically better than us. And so I think the rise of these new super centres where everyone is there is a positive thing if everyone's willing to work together.
Yeah. And was there much technical difference in your skills when you went to the circus? Did they learn from you?
A little bit. The other acrobat I was with also came from a trampolining background, but it's one of those ones that I wanted to do the skills that we were just watching these men do on the trampoline just then, but no one understands it. But if you do a really simple skill with your legs that kick in a funny way, everyone thinks it's amazing. So
Claps and cheers and applause.
Yeah, the circus world is a little bit different, unless you're in a Circus LA where they are pushing the packet of, those guys are doing stuff the Olympians are doing. It was sort of a different thing, but I had to adapt and learn how to dance and act and be an artist, and which I thoroughly enjoyed it, to take this skill set that I've learnt, that was learnt under such strict rules under this code of points that I was trying to compete to excel in, to all of a sudden that rule book's thrown out and I can do whatever I want and I have the right to sort of express myself in a way. It was a really fun little chapter of my life, and one I'm very glad I said yes to. But yeah, the dancing took a lot of practice.
It's just so interesting because even artistic, we had Georgia Benora saying that at one point, I think it was just before one of her major competitions, she was told, use your face in a different way. And so she was like, wait, now I've got to concentrate on my face, but I've never done that before. So it's really threw her. Is it similar for what you experienced?
Yeah, and vice versa. The directors of the shows and things that we were in, they didn't understand trampolining, and our director was trying to get me to jump on the beat, and I was like, I can't. the timing of the trampoline is slower than, and trying to cross worlds and find a happy medium was really, really fun. It really challenged me. I learned a lot during that period of my life, and I look back at it very, very fondly. I also I showed up at rehearsals and they told me I had to do silks, and I'd never done silks before, so that was a quick little learning curve for myself. And it hasn't just been myself. Dominic Clark, who I mentioned, who went to the 2020 Olympic Games for us, he had a stint with Circus LA, and it's kind of the pathway that a lot of athletes will take once their sporting career is done. But Dom was a far better dancer and performer than me, and came from a performing arts background, so he, I'm sure, took to it much faster than I did.
Then when you came back and you had to get your time of flight sorted on the trampoline, you're like, where's the music? I need that beat.
Yeah, well, I went back into the gym to train just to keep fit and healthy, and Australia was the only country where things were open at the moment during COVID. And I was training with no intentions of ever competing again. And my coach, Brett Austin, entered me in one of the New South Wales competitions without telling me. And then 2 weeks before, he said, you got to put together a routine. You're competing at State Trial 1. And I looked at him like, what? And I went along, and with a really relaxed attitude, a difficulty that was way below what I used to do. And I ended up having so much fun. And with that, I started to win again. And then I got a tap on the shoulder from the national coach and said, hey, we're going overseas. Do you want to, I think you'd be on the team. Do you want to come back? And I denied about it. And I said, okay, one more.
One more.
And then, another 4 years later, I was still going.
Famous last words.
Yeah, famous last words. So this is our under 17 women's final on the way at the moment. Pike double back to finish there. You want to see the athletes, just like the other gym sports, check with their feet without stepping. But these athletes are moving. The top guys will move up to 45, 50 kilometres an hour down the floor. They get to such high speeds that when they do stick, it is very, very, very impressive. But the top athlete in here is obviously Alexa Kashan, who we haven't seen yet. She would be our hot favourite. She's probably going to be our top female across the weekend, and she's not even age eligible for the senior event just yet. Here's our next athlete coming down. Whip, 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 whip into tuck double, and there's a pretty solid stack. A little step forward there. Gymnasts need to hold their checks for at least 2 to 3 seconds. If you step forwards, they're expected to bring their foot back to the foot behind them, and vice versa. If they step backwards, they need to return to their front foot to present, because it used to be a little bit of a strategy to kind of turn quickly if you were stepping and hide your steps and present to the judges.
They caught on to it, didn't they?
They caught on to the strategy there, and now you need to hold it and return back to the base foot before turning to present to the judges.
Some people have got socks on and some have bare feet. Is that a choice, obviously?
It is just a personal preference. Some people have, so on trampoline and dummy, a lot of the gymnasts will wear trampoline shoes, which are a little bit tighter than socks and have a grip on the bottom. But floor, it'll be a personal preference. You'll see the run up there is quite white. That is not the mat, that is chalk. That is a lot of the gymnasts will put on there to get the grip on their feet, particularly at that run up stage. I was watching warm-ups earlier, and Alexa was out there dusting the floor with some chalk, obviously to increase her grip. We've got a back full, whip, 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 flick, double back tuck. Pretty solid routine there from our South Australian gymnasts.
And the centre line down the track, is that a guide, or are the judges looking at that?
It is there a guide mainly for the gymnasts. If the 2 exterior lines, you can't go out of there. But on the rod floor, you actually don't have that much space. So if you're out of there, you're probably in a bit of trouble anyway. But it is there for the visuals for the athletes to track their way down the floor. You'll see a lot of athletes starting from different positions. So they'll mimic their run-ups in their home gyms. They'll measure it with a tape measure exactly so that your feet are starting in the exact same positions, because there's nothing worse than when the gymnast comes down and they think they're on the track, but their feet are actually on the mat for their last skill. Can cause a bit of dramas for a few athletes.
It takes away from the bounciness.
Yeah, and then you've got an athlete ready for a double or triple somersault, and the landing zone's quite soft, so you get zero bounce out of there. So that can be a bit of a tricky one. You also, vice versa, get a deduction from the judges if you finish your 8th skill and you're back on the tumble track, unless you finish with like a punch front, which is a slightly different one, but probably not something we're going to see at this level. More common in your lower levels as a way of bumping up the difficulty. Same thing for our tumbling gymnasts as our trampolining. So long as you don't initiate the first skill, you can like pop off the floor and go back again. Same for double mini. But as soon as you initiate your first skill, that's when the judging begins, and that's when, if you stop, that's where your routine will end there.
So you could take a couple of steps, and if you go, no, I'm a bit off, you can walk back.
Yeah, you can. As long as you exit to the side and don't initiate a skill, then you can double back and gather yourself.
It's good they have these little allowances which really can change the overall performance for the gymnast if they're just not ready or not feeling it in that moment.
I mean, I think we all understand that sport is a, entertainment and needs to be a spectacle, and we want to see the best of the athletes. It can be so brutal, gymnastics and trampolining. Like, you train, it's not like your NRL or anything where you're competing every weekend. You compete at the top level 2 or 3 times a year if you're lucky. Here's Alexa. She's going to go for her first routine here, and I'm assuming this is going to be something spectacular. Round off, back in full out straight, whip, whip. We can see how fast she is. Full in, full out, to our perfect stick. Dad's cheering over there in the background. I spoke too early on her stick. She's still wobbling. There we go. Dad's pretty happy with that. That's going to be yards above the rest of the competition here. But we knew that going in. She's such a superstar, 2-time junior world champion. And the best part about it is she's so humble. She's so kind. She's such a genuine competitor. She has so much respect for the other athletes. She'd be a very easy person to hate because she's so talented, but you just can't do it because she's just such a down-to-earth, lovely young girl, and like I said, has a bright, bright future in tumbling. I think there's a lot of the world really grateful that she's not age eligible for senior international just yet.
Watch this space though. A few years, absolute star. And
credit for Dimmer, who is her dad, and the rest of the athletes here. He does a great job of balancing the competition schedule and keeping training fun. As you can see there, she's 4-ish points, 4.3 points above the other competition there. And that's not because the other competition's not at standard. Alexa is just one of those generational athletes that you just have to respect.
Born with it. Born to do this, and fortunately she found the sport she was born to do. She was
born into the gym, I think. Her dad owns the club. The mum also coaches in there as well. They're just a lovely family. One of the biggest, most successful gymnastics clubs in New South Wales. Dimitri's done so much to revitalise tumbling in the sport. You've got Ethan McGuinness, world champion, coming out of there, as well as a plethora of other athletes who have done a wonderful job for tumbling on the international level for Australia. But yeah, she is a special talent. So that was our first routine, and then there will be 4 athletes will be eliminated, and the top 4 will do a second routine. Three fulls there into whip, double pike. Amazing work for our gymnasts out of South Australia there. Will Morris was a former teammate of mine who is one of the coaches down in our South Australian tumbling club. He was a trampoline gymnast and has opened up a tumbling club with him and his wife, and he's done an amazing job at producing some top athletes for South Australia over the last few years. And it's nice to see the sport growing in different ways around the country, because like I said earlier, there was a few years there where we thought we'd seen the last of tumbling here in Australia, and it's such an accessible sport. We get so many athletes coming across from cheerleading, artistic gymnastics, and this is their entryway into it. And it's such an exciting event.
The cheering says it all, doesn't it? It's so loud. You can't hear it on the live stream probably, but here in person you can hear the screams from across the arena, and people are just so into it. It's really cool to see.
In my opinion, one of the best and worst things to happen for trampoline sports was when we got a berth at the Olympic Games. We weren't able to put, like artistic gymnastics has, all four apparatus into the Olympic Games, and the choice was made to just make individualised trampolining the only Olympic sport for trampolining. And unfortunately what happened when that decision made is a lot of the top athletes really, valued that Olympic status and started to focus more solely on trampolining. And now we have such a specialisation in trampolining around the world. And the level of trampolining as an individual discipline has skyrocketed through the roof over the last 26 years. And to be a part of that as an athlete and see the progress each and every 4-year cycle shows the sport's growing, and that's where the money's been putting internationally into it. But unfortunately, it means that the disciplines like tumbling and double mini and synchronized trampolining hasn't had the talent stay in it. They're such different sports. There's a few rare athletes that can specialize across all three, but you'll get a lot of trampolinists that can also do double mini. You'll get a lot of tumblers that can also do double mini. but you don't get many trampolinists that can also tumble, or tumblers that can also trampoline. So at times we kind of do end up almost with like separation between the athletes of, you're a tumbler, but we make a really big emphasis when we travel with the Australian team that we are Team Australia. We are one unit. We hunt as a wolf pack. We are all together. And I think the success for Australia in the all-round team event finals for the last few years, we've been in the top 5 countries in the world. We haven't quite cracked the podium. Here goes Alexa, double back straight in the middle. So high, so powerful. Full in, full out straight. Massive, massive routine there. That would hold up on the Women's International World Championship final. Done well too. You can see how much she maintains her speed. Proud dad there giving her a hug. You can't beat it. Such a phenomenal routine.
I cannot believe my eyes, honestly, that how is she getting that height and then continuing to do another 3 skills after that?
So young as well. Like, she hasn't finished her physical development. She's so young, she's so powerful, she's so strong. She is going to be one. Remember the name Alexa Kashan, because she's going to go on to do great things. And her 3 younger brothers are also coming up later on in the program for this weekend. Dimmer's got 2 young twin boys, and another boy, Timothy, who are also following in Alexa's footsteps as well. So the Kashan family, keep an eye on them.
You would swear there are springs inbuilt into the feet over there.
Yeah, they do a phenomenal job. That's going to be another national title into the quiver for Alexa. And now we've got our men coming through to warm up. So this is our junior under-17 men's tumbling. And you can see a little bit of a smaller field. This is usually what our tumbling fields were looking like with only 3 athletes. But it's good to see the growth happening, the development coming through in tumbling in Australia again.
And shout out to Gymnastics Australia for putting together this event. Pretty much brings together the nation's top artistic, trampoline, rhythmic, aerobic and acrobatic gymnasts from every state and territory. And of course, New Zealand across the ditch. So it's just really cool to see in one venue. You can still grab your tickets. We are at the Key Centre, Sydney Olympic Park until the 20th of July. So just jump on the website, ozgymnasticschamps.com.au. You can get a day pass, an unlimited pass, or a VIP package. Sounds fancy.
I was part of the early national championships where we were standalone events, and we never actually ended up seeing any of the gymnasts from other gym sports. And when we amalgamated and started to compete alongside them, it was so refreshing to be able to get things like media involved and a little bit more of a spotlight onto trampolining, and build some friends with Sammy Offord, who is one of our gymnasts from my era, who's now the president of Gymnastics Australia and a good lifelong friend of mine. And to build those relationships across sports has been really special. So it's nice to see Gymnastics Australia putting the effort in to make sure that we are gymnastics, not the separated gymnastic sports.
Yeah. And also because if you are, say, a former artistic gymnastics, you can still appreciate what is happening across, acrobatic and aerobic, rhythmic, trampoline, because you know what it takes to train, get these skills, compete them. You know the hard work it requires and the mental resilience as well.
Yeah, I think it always helped to build those relationships. And then when you were watching them go overseas World Cups or different things, you did become more invested, particularly for myself, someone who didn't come from the artistic world. Like, I learned about it once I was already a gymnast, and it was cool to see, okay, I actually know these people and I understand the rules now better, to follow along and to appreciate the sport and, be that fan as well as the athlete in the experience.
Yeah. So 25 metres, the tumbling track, you said?
Yes, I believe so. 25 metres, and then they have a 6 or 8 metre run up, and then obviously the landing zone, that the higher blue mats that are sitting there above the the surrounding safety landing area.
So that's not a lot of time to accelerate when you need to produce that amount of power going into it.
Yeah, you'll see they'll get maybe 4 or 5 steps onto their run-up before they'll hurdle in. You can use a beat board, like in artistic gymnastics. It's few and far in between athletes that do that, just the way the rules are now set up. But yeah, they are some phenomenal athletes that will take to power track tumbling. You can always spot them in the warm-up hall and in different gyms because they're usually icing their ankles.
Oh, that sounds so dramatic, but it's so real. It's the reality, right?
They put so much power through their lower bodies, and like on the trampoline, you're working with such a powerful piece of equipment. You can get so much out of it. So even when it goes wrong, you're still going to get quite a good rebound or quite a good reaction from the equipment. The rod floor they're on there, if you've been on an artistic floor, it's going to be a little bit more springy or a little bit more bouncy than an artistic floor, but not a great deal. Not
considering you're in the air.
Yeah, considering the top guys in the world are doing multiple twisting triple somersaults and multiple twisting double somersaults on a rod floor is really, really impressive. And I don't know if it's coming across on the screen, but the floor itself is so loud that whenever the top guys are doing it, it draws attention in the gym, and it will take the eyes of the crowd at a World Championships when you've got the tumblers out there. If you're on the trampoline, you just know that, you're becoming background noise essentially because it is so fast, it's so furious, it's so impressive, and anything can happen. It's really cool. So that was our first athlete, Noah Longman out of WA. Next up, we've got Jordan from New South Wales. And the Kashan's club in Western Sydney, KSTP, their run-up actually starts outside. So their gym's not long enough to fit the full-length run-up for their tumble track. So they have to open up these 2 double doors to then finish the run-up where Jordan is standing now. And it's not been unknown in the middle of summer to have a visit from brown snakes.
No.
And
that's something you'd be running pretty quickly away from.
In the winter and when it's raining, they'll put up carports so that they can still run outside without being wet and different things. So for a club like that to produce multiple world championships at the junior and senior level when they're training with such adversity is really, really impressive. And a lot of top tumbling clubs around the world have made the pilgrimage out to Australia to come and train with Dimitri because he gathers so much respect internationally, and they're always so shocked that he is able to produce so much out of such a unique facility. He's kind of like an evil genius of the tumbling world. He makes his own spotting mats and harnesses by hand, and he's always creating and innovating in his own unique ways, Dimitri. He's a really, really big asset to the Australian trampolining community.
It's certainly working what he's doing because Jordan stuck that and it was beautiful, the landing.
So around a full into a row of whips here. And double back tuck. Just got that one around. So the whips will be kind of like a layout back somersault. You want them low and fast. You don't want to see the athlete losing momentum or speed through their whips. You'll see some athletes also do a flick or a back handspring, and that's where their hands touch. A lot of the times that'll be the last one before they do their big double somersault at the end, or as a connecting skill in the middle as well.
So that was Ryan Mason, South Australian.
So we're back up for our second routine. Short and sharp, just the 3 boys in it for Noah Longman out of WA. So Noah there just missed the landing zone ever so slightly, which will cost a little bit of a deduction there from the judges. So you want both feet on that softer blue mat I mean, there's a lot of blue, but hopefully you can spot the softness there.
The thicker one?
The thicker one.
Would that be 10 centimetres? 8 centimetres?
A little bit less. That'll be about 5. And then the big landing zone that you can also see for the double minis with the 3 different colours on there, they're about 50 centimetres. So quite thick landing zones when you've got athletes coming down from such high heights. And then the softer one on the top of the tumbling floor, that is just there because it's a little bit more common for an athlete to land short and to jar, but that's an option that an athlete can move that mat away if they don't want it on there. 2 falls into a row of whips here, and then big double egg tuck.
Enormous height, and sticks the landing. Well done, Jordan. So internationally, is it the same mat for the landing?
Yes, so Gymnastics Australia has, to host our qualification, we have the international standard equipment, just like World Championships. The comp layout floor that you're seeing here is almost identical to what you'll see around the world. And likewise as well, our judges, the trampoline panels and tumbling and double mini will all have FIG accredited judges on them, particularly at these events when there's selections for World Championships. So particularly the senior events will all have FIG qualified judges. Got a row of whips here. I'm assuming that's a slight little change there for Ryan. Maybe didn't have quite the speed or power that he was after there. But a solid routine nonetheless for Ryan. So all 3 boys now, if there's more than 8 athletes, they'll reset. The top 8 will progress through. Because there's 3 athletes, they'll progress through to final. And then it will go to the last final, the 4th round, where you got down to 4 athletes, obviously with the 3. All 3 will progress through. So usually they'll give the athletes an option to warm up. Sometimes in a small field like this, a lot of the boys will just say, we're ready. Unless you're making a change to your passes and you want to maybe touch a skill that you haven't competed already, a few athletes might take the warm up, but otherwise they should just keep moving through and let the boys continue on, and rather than to cool down and warm up for formality reasons.
And the 3 of them decide amongst themselves what they want to do for the warm-up, or?
Yeah, so it'll be communicated to the head judge through the coaches. As an athlete in trampoline sports, you can't actually communicate with the judges. There's penalties involved, and you can also get a fine at the international level. You can make an appeal as an athlete if you think, for example, I know my routine difficulty was 18.2 and you put up 18, you can put a petition in and just be like, I think you've made a mistake there, but otherwise all the communication to the judging panel will be done via the coaches. And usually they'll be having a powwow up the top in the marshalling area, and it'll be like, are you ready to go? Yep. Move it on. Can
you do a sneaky little smile to the judge or not?
Yes, you can. I would always... as a strategy of this was something that my coach and I made the decision to do, mainly for myself, to sneaky have some fun on the competition floor. But I would always pick a judge and make direct eye contact with them and smile when I presented to the judges. 1, because in Australia, I know all the judges anyway.
Yeah.
But 2, it made me smile and made me relax. And when I was relaxed, I competed better.
Would they smile back at you?
Sometimes. A lot of the judges on the domestic circuit in particular are friends and things, or ex-athletes that I competed against, and they picked up what I was doing. But on the international, I would always pick the scariest looking judge from whatever and make sure I give them direct eye contact. It was also because they would put their head down to enter their scores, so I'd always to make sure, are you actually watching me now?
I'm here.
Yeah, like I'm saluting to you. I'm showing you a form of respect. Are you actually watching? And sometimes it was. It was also sometimes my mum on the judging panel.
Oh.
And I would always make sure I didn't look at her because I couldn't focus with that one, or she couldn't focus either. Both.
Don't want to distract. Now we do have the scores in for the tumbling junior under 17 male qualification routine 2. So the standings after that, 45.1 for Jordan from New South Wales, 43.2 for Noah from WA, and 40.1 for Ryan Mason from South Australia. So of course that is after qualification routine 2. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Any thoughts, feelings going into it?
They're pretty neck and neck. I don't think Mason hit the routine he was quite after in that first round for himself, but it's still anyone's game, particularly once we start getting to the drop-down final. I'm not 100% sure what the rules are with only 3 men, whether they go back to 0 or it is an accumulative score. But it's very much still up for grabs right now. Jordan probably had the strongest routine there and has been the most consistent.
His first score was 22.6 and his second was 22.5, so only 0.1 of a difference.
And I think that second routine, his double back tuck there was very, very under control and had quite a lot of height. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had an extra something up his sleeve, whether that becomes a double back pike, a double back straight, or he puts in some twist into it. But we will have to wait and see. A little bit of a fall there, unfortunately, for Ryan on his first pass. But I think with the 3 men, they're going to progress through anyway. I always sympathise for the double Indian tumbling athletes because you've got such a long walk back to the marshalling area after a routine, and that can be a long walk if it hasn't gone well. You can see a young man there a little bit disappointed with his body language, but handling it like an absolute champ. I've seen some athletes that is a long and sad walk sometimes with a lot of emotions on display with the crowd, so he's handled himself quite well there.
It could be the longest 25 metres of your
life.
life.
Yeah, trampolining you can kind of duck away into
hide
a lot quicker. Full whip, and double back tuck. He's got room there for more.
That was, how many metres high do you reckon that was?
So tumbling, the top guys will get about 5 metres in the air. And in there, we've seen guys fit in full twisting, triple back somersaults, quadruple twisting, double back somersaults. The top level is so impressive. And a little bit of friendly camaraderie here from Jordan. He's noticed that the mat wasn't aligned properly and he's just fixed it for his competitor Noah there.
Legend. Thank you, Jordan.
Good sportsmanship. We love to see that. So the reason the order changed there for the men, the rules used to be that if you were leading into the final, you went last, which gave you a little bit of like a strategic advantage to see what the athletes before you did. But that was one of the new rule changes that just recently came in, that now it is in a random order. A couple of fulls there into pike double back. Very well controlled there for Noah.
Really happy with that.
Yeah, that was probably his strongest pass so far.
So we do have the scores coming through. So Jordan from New South Wales for final 1, routine 1, was a 22.1. And Ryan from South Australia, 19.9. Just awaiting Noah's score. Oh, here it is. It's just popped up. Noah from WA has scored a 22.5.
Yeah, that makes things more interesting now for this 4th and final pass.
0.4 difference between first and second at this stage.
My apologies. It doesn't look like they're going to do a 4th and final pass.
Are we done, skis? We have our winners?
So, because there was less than 4 gymnasts, the 3rd round essentially became null and void because it was a 0 score. So that was a winner-take-all final. And Noah put up the performance here of the day there for himself, with the 2nd highest score, taking out the national championship there.
Congratulations,
Well
Noah
done,
Longman
Noah.
from WA, 22.5 to take home gold in the junior under 17 tumbling men's. The presentation is being set up now.
So I think the biggest one takeaway from today, the men's trampoline probably had a few letdowns there tonight. a few athletes will not be happy with their results. Our final is Nicholas Diaz is going to be in our top spot, followed by Luca McLeod, Sebastian Smith from New Zealand, Matthew French, Samuel Durkin from Queensland, River Mallon from Tasmania, Avi Moragos from New South Wales, Patrick Schulter, and then Bryce Edwards. So the big name that's missing from there's a couple. Brock Batty, 2024 Paris Olympian, had a bit of a shocker tonight. I know he's going to be disappointed with himself to miss that final and not to get the extra chance to be battling out for that national championship. So I know he's going to be disappointed with himself. He's come off a stellar World Cup run with some top performances in the world. So I would guess a little bit of fatigue come through there for Brock. But the other boys have put themselves into a position for tomorrow to come back and to reset for themselves, to put all the marbles on the table for one routine for that final. So a few names to watch there will be Nicholas, Luke, and then Bryce, and my dark horse for that one will also be Sammy Durkin out of Queensland. I think any of those men, given their day, can pop up onto that top spot. And then in the women, we've got Evie from New South Wales, Layla, Sienna, Willow, Gabby, Amber, Evie May, Rebecca, and Ruby through for our final.
And of course, you can watch all of that action with the live stream. So tomorrow, Saturday, 11th of July, 6 till 8:30 will be the finals for both men's and women's. And then Sunday, the 12th of July, from 12 till 3:30 will be the international team final and the team all-around final. Of course, the action here at the Australian Gymnastics Championships continues, coming to you live from the Key Centre, Sydney Olympic Park. Over the next few days, we don't wrap up until the 20th of July. So grab your tickets, ozgymnasticschamps.com.au. You can grab a day pass, unlimited pass, or VIP package. We do have trampolining, as I said, until Sunday, the 12th of July. Rhythmic, Tuesday, the 14th to Monday, the 20th of July. Acrobatics, that'll be Tuesday, the 14th to Friday, the 17th. And aerobic gymnastics, 18th, 19th, and 20th. It is action-packed, and thank you so much to our expert commentator today, Sean Swaddling. Has it been fun?
Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It is far less stressful being on this side of the fence on the microphone rather than out there competing amongst the boys, but part of me does still miss it. But it was awesome to see the guys put up their show tonight, and they did an awesome job, and we'll be back for finals tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you for joining us on the live stream.
Presenters, usually you stay in state. Usually. And to present this afternoon, this evening even, I would like to welcome delightful World Gymnastics judges and chairs of their respective panel, Peter Christie, Marie Calder, and Jen Spear. And we start with our junior under-17 male tumbling results. The winner of the bronze medal representing South Australia, Brian. The winner of the silver medal representing New South Wales, Jordan. And the winner of the gold medal in the 2026 Australian Gymnastics Junior Under-17 Male Tumbling Champion for Western Australia, Noah. Congratulations, gymnasts. And now our results for junior under-17 female tumbling. representing Western Australia, Anna. The winner of the silver medal representing New South Wales, Lucy. And the winner of the gold medal in the 2026 Australian Gymnastics Junior Under-17 Female Tumbling Champion for New South Wales, Alexa.